minus our oil. God helped us. The Bazungu were here, they tried to look for it, but the God hid it. He kept hiding it from them until we came. I think we are the lucky God's people. So they've been trying to hurry us up, and we've been saying, no, we are getting it out on our own terms. So if all these have been happening without the oil, Gen Zs, I am salivating. Let nobody divert you. Simply adhere to these scientific figures and say, no, we must be part of this winning story. Are you ready to be part of this winning story? You are ready? I am commending that. Since you are my children, all of you, when I look at you, you are my children. I cannot be the one who wishes you evil. Just remain steady.
Leading to rapid extinction of many of the world species and unbalancing whole ecosystems. The New Vision of the 3rd December 2025 ran an article in which the extinction of many bird species in Kampala was announced to the world. One of them is the weaver bird, or Endegea. This bird was so prevalent around here that it gave names to this university. Makerere University takes its name from the noise made by the Ndegea, which is the Swahili people called kerere. So this is Makerere because there was a lot of noise here. But the bird is getting extinct. The other place it gave its name to was Wandegea, because there were so many Ndegeas here. But the bird is getting extinct. Climate change resulting from uncontrolled thirst for farmland is also the explanation for many of the so-called, remember so-called, they are not really, so-called natural disasters of landslides and floods. World peace is becoming a rare commodity as nations battle each other for a variety of reasons. These wars have so far generated 31 million refugees worldwide. Uganda has more than her share of the burden of hosting refugees, standing at well over 2 million at the last count. This is also a great impediment to sustainable socio-economic transformation, since rapid influx of refugees is a potential drain on national resources and an agent of rapid environmental degradation. To all these are added compounding factors of sexual indiscipline that has resulted in an epidemic of teenage pregnancies, fueling the unacceptably high maternal mortality ratio, and the devastating HIV pandemic. Another compound factor is the poisoning of young brains and minds with alcohol and drug addiction, a problem common among university communities like Makerere. All these impediments severely constrain people's capacity to sustain socio-economic transformation and therefore require your determined effort to overcome. I'll talk a little about the characteristics of transformative education that helps to make it a tool for sustaining socio-economic transformation. The following are some of the attributes and benefits of transformative education. 1, teaching and learning are aimed at motivating and empowering happy, healthy learners to take informed decisions and actions at all levels of their lives, at the individual, community, and global level. 2, rather than looking on from the ivory tower, learners align their school-acquired experiences with the world of work through active and deliberate engagement. 3, to sustain socioeconomic transformation, we need to learn not just how to read and write, but also collaboration, empathy, complex problem solving, mutually beneficial connection to human beings and the environment. Next, when students feel valued, when they feel safe, when they feel included in the learning community as full and active members and are acknowledged for their contribution, their education is truly transformative. But it starts with preventing and addressing school violence, bullying, gender-based violence, to mention but a few. In a transformative education, teachers transform their teaching to ensure that the curriculum, pedagogy, learning materials, and environment are all conducive. The education which I hope you at Makerere and in all other universities have enjoyed was meant to turn you into agents of transformation, not agents of corruption. As chairperson of Education Service Commission, it hurts me to see Makerere trained teachers, and for that matter, any teacher, being dismissed from service for having forged documents such as transfer letters. Let me take a deep breath and tell you a story. That one day I was descending stairs. The stairs were going this way, and I looked this way as I descended them one at a time. And when I got to the bottom, a young man ran to me and said, "Why do old people descend stairs looking sideways, not forwards?" My answer to him was, "Just wait a little. You will find out." The ball is therefore now squarely in the court of universities. And you, university scholars, to take us the last mile by generating solutions to all the impediments to socio-economic transformation so that the process can be sustained. Education has placed a heavy burden of responsibility on your shoulders. Do not let us down. I'll tell you a story about these 3 young men who were on an island which had run out of food. The islanders came together and said, "Let's select 3 reliable young men, put them in a boat with whatever food we have left, so that they sail to the mainland and bring us some food when they find it there." The young men got to the mainland, found so much food, they enjoyed themselves, they started drinking and partying and running around with women, and they forgot to go back, and disaster struck. The entire island population died. My last bit of the talk is, never mind where I started or came from. I was born in Namungalwe. I will not bother you by asking you where that is because you want to know. I was born in Namungalwe. Growing up in Namungalwe, which I regarded as the end of the world, my education started in a grass-thatched buildings. And I actually started learning how to write by writing with a short stick in the dust outside my classroom. I walked barefoot till Junior 1, which is the equivalent of P7 now. In fact, if I take a breath and tell you,
Thank you very much, Honorable. The organizers of this town hall meeting, I think led by the Vice Chancellor, the professor I admire, who always makes people get glued to the TV when we are behind the headlines program. Professor Sari, all your team, the distinguished honorable members, the professors, this front page, the following bench, I think, of the student leadership, and all participants of this great symposium. Good afternoon. I'm very sorry I had intended to grace this occasion by being here right at the beginning, but by our work, it's a matter of a short, very precise call, where are you? And then the next thing is that you have to go to another place. And it depends. That question is not a question for everybody. It normally comes from a preserve of where you will not say, I had another, you'll have to match. But by God's grace, I've managed to handle both tasks. I want to thank the organizers of this important interaction at a place which I think is the right place. The university should be of this character. I recollect in the 80s when we were here, you would find weeks and weeks when auditoria would be filled to capacity, listening to intellectuals, listening to visions, listening to philosophies. Of late, I feel uncomfortable when the university is, especially at the opening of the university, you get certain activities which, yes, could punctuate what should be in the university, but which shouldn't be the dominant feature. Some of the bazaars, okay, but not the university environment. So I am very excited that this afternoon, this auditorium is full to capacity, where we are listening to very inspirational and very educative presentations. I want you, Professor Sari, to maintain this character. It's never too late to turn to doing good things. And I think I see a light at the end of the tunnel. Sustaining the transformation of Uganda. I want to contextualize this question in a setting deserving of your audience. For long, at times, we in Africa think we should not acknowledge that we also, too, have been part of the journey of human civilization. Yet, actually, I want to submit that Africa is the cradle of human civilization. And one of the hallmarks of human civilization at different historic junctions, we have had rare personalities who take time to provide long-term projection, to provide long-term answers to things which have been puzzling humanity at that given point in time. In academia, these have eventually been accredited as philosophers of different times. For Africa, in the ancient Africa, I wouldn't want to say there were no philosophers. Definitely, if there is a fairness and Africa is given its place, we would register personalities qualified to be philosophers in their own right. However, permit me to bring it closer to ourselves. Uganda, we are lucky that we have lived in a time when, for once, the journey we are towing is being guided by a philosophy. What is happening in Uganda is not simply a gamble. What is happening is a journey that has been crafted based on a clear philosophy. And what is this philosophy? When we talk of Uganda, of course, you must know that Uganda, with its borders today, is a colonial creation. We had Africa that once was a place of people who dwelt in it without borders, without balkanization. For a long time, you may wish to know, the young people, that 4 million years ago, the first human beings dwelt in this area, the Great Lakes region. These other parts of the globe were not habited. Sometimes it's not told, but a place like Europe was not inhabited until just a few 100,000 years ago. Yet humanity had been dwelling on Earth 4 million years. Here, mainly in the plains of this great place called the Great Lakes region of Africa. This went on until the last 600 years ago, when things got reversed, with Europe now overtaking Africa. Reasons I wouldn't want to make it the subject of today. But the consequence is that today you have countries in Africa which are a creation of other people's convenience. However, when we were disadvantaged the way we did, I think by God's grace, it did not take long for us to regain freedom. You imagine these Europeans took over Africa. Let's take 1900 as the baseline. 14 years later, if it was not the work of God, who else? These same people turned to one another, killing one another terribly. And in the process, they displaced one another. Germany was displaced from Africa. We got saved from that burden. Later, 20 years down the road, a repeat. The end result, they got weakened and Africa re-emerged. Soon after that, we ought to have had God had delivered us. We ought to have said now, God, deliver us into tracing where we went wrong. And this didn't happen. At independence, leaders simply arrived. They simply fell in things. They did not ask the fundamental question. What is it now that once again we are delivered should be done? Instead, you had problems of unprincipled conflicts, leaders organizing around tribes, around here in Uganda, you had people saying it must be only this region, and even a political formation got formed. Those of you who may be interested, you had a party here or a political formation called Kabaka Yeka. What agenda? Kabaka Yeka. Is that what Africa requires? Kabaka Yeka. The others were saying, those who don't pray in this church, we don't want you. Political parties along religious lines, missing the point. We call it a false start. Consequently, you had nothing but turmoil. You had Honorable Ruhindi telling you, 4 years after independence here in Uganda, turmoil. What we call the constitutional crisis. The person who was president of Uganda clashing with the prime minister, and the prime minister using the army which had not also been transformed, an outfit of colonial army, used against, used in political fights. That army commanded by Idi Amin is the one which chased Sir Edward Mutesa, Sir Kabaka Mutesa, who had, through the constitutional arrangements, become the first president of this country. Chased like chicken. He survived narrowly. They nearly caught him in his palace. After that, the prime minister who chased him in 1969, he survived narrowly, but he lost some 4 teeth at Rugogo here. We lost presidential teeth. You know, an attempted assassination. When he went to Mulago, as he was waking up from being unconscious, he banned all political activities in the country. 2 years later, he is consequently removed. Idi Amin, I don't want to mention. Things totally collapsed. Literally, Idi Amin means collapse. I don't want to really go into stories, but Uganda went on its knees. But alas, in the 60s, there were young people like you who had seen this missed opportunity, this false start, and they had started asking questions. Really, is this what independence means? Among them, luckily enough, is our current leader. When he's in senior 3, he decides to say, but is what I am seeing the right thing? How come this place, our area, Africa, Uganda, we're endowed, but people are miserable? In his village, people were literally like wild animals. There was no difference between the animals and the human being, wandering around the bushes. And he started asking. And eventually he came to a conclusion that there is something wrong. And the questions which were in the heads of him and his contemporaries was, does Africa deserve wellness? It looks elsewhere. People are well off. People are prosperous. Does it mean Africa doesn't deserve prosperity? Is it that because Africans are black, they are condemned to being in a miserable situation, wandering around, poverty everywhere, diseases everywhere? And his question, and in his questioning, the conclusion was, no, Africans also deserve better. Why? Because Africa, one, is the greatest nation, bigger than any part of the globe. Africa, you bring Africa, you put 12 Indias. You bring Africa, you can fit in 4 Chinas. Your Africa, you can fit in 4 USAs. Therefore, there is no reason why Africa should be the wretched of the earth. 2, Africa is the cradle of humankind. All indicators Even biblically, it is clear that Africa is the beginning of humanity. Therefore, Africans deserve better. 3, Africa is the pioneer of civilization. So this shaped a new philosophy that no, we need to challenge this misery. Africa deserves better. So the question was, do we deserve prosperity? This is a philosophical question. And the answer is yes. Okay, if we are saying yes, how do you prosper? And from all logic, and I see Professor here, I am now going in their area. The philosophical answer was and is that prosperity is cushioned by wealth. You must be wealthy in order to be happy. Where does wealth come from? Becomes the next question. So you people who study philosophy, this is the thing. Don't think it's Plato who asked things only. We have a contemporary philosopher, and it is that philosophy that I am begging to premise our discussion on the journey of transformation, because this journey is not by accident. If it is wealth, how do you create wealth? Wealth is created by engaging in gainful, productive activities. And the question will be, which are these gainful, productive activities? Africa, well-endowed. Uganda, well-endowed in terms of arable facilities called land, and all other natural endowments. But the question is, even when you go back to the Bible, God said, I have given you these, dominate them, but multiply them. Africans, the only problem, they thought God had said they only multiply themselves. But he meant multiply the birds by having poultry, multiply the animals by having dairy farming, multiply. So the first area of wealth creation, logically you see it as being commercial production in areas of agriculture, in areas of animal industry. Secondly, you need to multiply value. Therefore, logically, you must start thinking of value addition. The president has been on record telling the young people sources of wealth, sources of income, commercial agriculture, value addition, services. Opportunities are there. I normally feel bad. You drive from here, Nansana, Chiboga. Long journey. You can't have an attractive restaurant that when you turn here, you see a glamoring restaurant and you stop and have refreshment. Money is passing. What ought to be done, you people who have started entrepreneurship, who have started what? To look at that opportunity and say, and organize and have a service there. So services is another area. So, what am I saying? We have had an opportunity in this country when all things seemed to be in despair. These young people who came up to question the status quo, asked the right questions and got answers, and these answers then gave them what should be put across. What was the politics of dividing people? They said, this must be replaced by advocating integration, by integrating unity of the country, what today has crystallized in the principle, ideological principle of patriotism. To say people don't eat their identity. It's not about how tall you are, how short you are. It's not how dark you are, how fair-skinned you are. It's about what you require. So, the principle of saying, let's preach the unity of the country, the love for one another, is just a consequence of realizing that we need a new direction. And when the conclusion was Uganda, Africa requires prosperity, and it requires that people must work for this prosperity, then the preaching had to change. Instead of preaching parochialism, preaching narrowness, we had to say no to bad politics. And then embark seriously on reconstructing the state. Because once you have confusion, you can't have the machinery of keeping the country together functional. Right now, you can go to northern Sudan, what they call the Sudan. The state has collapsed. So in Uganda here, one of the areas we had to address was ensuring we resuscitate the state, reconstruct it, and make it viable. Why today we are confident is that the Uganda state is fully constructed, fully fueled, and unstoppable. That one, you sometimes see people who are dreaming during the day, forgetting that that issue of a defective state machinery in Uganda has been settled once and for all. The Uganda state, I can assure you, is one of the most viable ones, and people who only are possessed with Chibweterism can dare the Uganda state. In other words, you only have suicidal mentality to assume you will destabilize Uganda. Secondly, to go and the issue was to restore the narrow economy, because even by the time of independence, the economy was very narrow. So the issue was, how do we begin? Let's put together the parts of that economy, excuse me, so that we have a foundation. So the small economy, which was of coffee, cotton, tobacco, and copper, had to be put back on foot, but the most important thing was later to expand it. And I will demonstrate to you with figures from what our economists have been researching on. So, the other areas, of course, industrialization, infrastructure. People who were giving testimony, in '86, when we came here, I had an assignment to go to Arua in West Nile. I embarked on a journey on it was what do they call it, hitchhiking? You jump on this vehicle after that. Now, from Kampala to Luwero, it took me a whole day. From here to reach Luwero, I started at 8. I reached Luwero, I remember, like at 9 in the night. Because the vehicle would move, you don't know where to pass, you bring some soil, you put, negotiate. Now, from Ruwero, the following day, I embarked on a journey now to Masindi, because the other route was a bit problematic. We were crossing the ferry. Ruwero to Masindi, another whole day. In other words, to cut the story short, it took me a whole week to reach Arua. A journey now of when the road was still very, very okay, a journey of 6 hours now. It took me a whole week. So when we talk about restoring infrastructure and expanding it, it's as dramatic as that. The areas of social services. Here, Makerere, we were here, 1986. I would afford to get students from the whole country who want to join the university and take them to Chankwanzi, all of them, with no exception. But now I can't dare because education has expanded so much. So in 1986-7, it was only this university, only this. The second one, which had been on the books, was IU. Even when Idi Amin was a fellow Muslim, he failed to make it take off. It had to wait for us. IU started at the same time with MUST, Mbarara University of Science and Technology. So by 90, we had 3 universities, by 1990, in a space of 4 years. In other words, there has been expansion in many of the sectors. Now we are entering a new horizon. With you, the sky is not the limit. All you need is to stop getting confused. There are people who are witch doctors who say, you now, the young people, it's your turn, you take over things, overturn things. But yeah, there is no permanence in youngness. I think it was stated here. Was it here where I had it? Professor, were you the one talking about it? Being young is not a permanent feature. We who are talking were once upon a time, we did not jump to be oldies. We were youngies. But we did not destroy Uganda. We had to preserve it and leave it for you to come. There are others who are going to come whom you are going to produce. So these people who are vulgarizing things, you young ones, all these should go. Who tells you? So what happens when you become old? So the issue is we need to know, to care and understand that things have been going on. Now, where they are, the atmosphere, the environment is such that you should take advantage of it and even make things better, not to cause chaos. These forces who are dictating to you, you heard what Attorney General Emeritus told you. China, 5,000 years of civilization. What they realized was that they should allow every generation to define a new brick to add. They tried to confuse them in 1989. The young people of China were about to be confused, but they stood their ground and they said, no, you can't destroy China simply because you are young. It's very amazing. These people are criminals. They are sponsoring agenda to this. Of course, now they are worried. They are seeing Africans, a renaissance is showing signs. A waking up is beginning to show on the horizon. And they are worried. You could see attempting to destabilize Tanzania, which has been painstakingly crafted. They target it. They've been targeting Ethiopia. They've been targeting, now they managed Sudan. Sudan is a great area. Sudan means the black land of blacks. It is the oldest area of Africa's pride. They've attacked it. They attempted Egypt, but they are not done. You saw them. They've infiltrated Mozambique, a camp where the revolution against apartheid, they've taken it over for terrorist activities. So they are working hard and they are targeting you. It's very good this conversation has been arranged so that you can be cushioned. I want to alert you, whatever you see that is trending, don't think it is as innocent as you think. A criminal hand is behind some of these trends that are bent on destroying the gains. So this slogan you are hearing is not just a slogan. It is a real voice against the threats on our hard-won peace, hard-won reconstruction. So don't just innocently, here, go and digest this. Your role is to add on the attainments, the foundations laid in the service sector, the foundations laid in the technology area, the foundations laid in the infrastructural development, the foundations already laid in revamping agriculture. All are opportunities where now you should use your young brains to create more opportunities and ensure that we expand our economies. Not to say your work today is simply to engage in an agenda that you don't know the origin. Now, as I conclude, I just wanted to say the foundation has been laid in all the sectors that were really hampered: the human resource sector, the infrastructural sector, agriculture and industrial sectors, service sector, even the governance sector. I want to end with the figures which demonstrate the transformation. And the best year is 1986. I am picking from these professors who have done research. In 1986, they tell us inflation in the country was 326%. Today, it's at 3.4. Inflation was 3-digit. You should really, if you have no energy, you should clap for this dramatic transformation. From 326 in 1986 to 3.4% today, almost the lowest in the whole world. GDP, gross domestic product. Gross meaning after you people of economics, but what remains in our products. It was US dollars 3.9 billion, talk of 4 billion. Today, we are talking of 61.3 billion. How many folds? Even if you are really mean, you should acknowledge. In 1986, poverty levels were lingering between 56 to 60%. Today, we are talking of a drop to 16.1%. Electricity access, those people who would access electricity, 86, were 5% of the population. Today, it has gone to 60%. It's not very big, but worth clapping for. Broadband, I think these are the internet things. It was hardly there in 1986, less than 1%. Today we are boasting of 72%. Exports. 1986, there were miserable 6 traditional exports. 6. Not even very amusing, but this has now been diversified to 31 big time products being exported on the world market. So Uganda's economy, which was 4 billion, now talking of 61 billion, really is something to celebrate. Our average growth is all lingering at 6.5% per annum. Almost again the highest in the world. The country has transformed from subsistence to work for only the stomach to now a more commercialized, service-driven model with 67% of our households now engaged in work for cash. 67% of the households. Other areas of interest. Roads. In 1986, we were talking of 1,900 kilometers, very miserable roads. This has moved to 6,199 kilometers. Power generation, 1986 was at 150 megawatts. We are talking now of 1,163.2 megawatts. And this is bound to go higher because we are moving into other areas, including nuclear power. Human resource development, literacy levels 86 were at 43%. We are now talking about at an average above 80%. Life expectancy, how long people live on average, 43, 86. Now we are talking about 63, 64 on average. We are beginning to have a problem of old people. You imagine me and the PS Education Service, we are still around. But we are above 60. We are in the people of the 6th floor are now very many, and they are still, we are still growing strong. But this was not the case. People, on average, by 40 years, you would see an old man. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can go on and on. Remember next year,